Hey, greetings and good morning. Today is April 9th, 2024, and we are all still here. Yeah, we're all still here. Yesterday was the eclipse, but what didn't happen was the rapture, unfortunately, right? The rapture didn't happen. But you know what else didn't happen? Was all the news hype of what was going to happen during the eclipse, especially where I'm living at. We were like the epicenter of where the eclipse was going to take place. And so for the last month, the news was giving us a heads up and a warning on what we should do to prepare for the massive increase in population that the city was going to see. They said to get gas even a few days early, fill up your tanks, do your grocery shopping, because it was supposed to be crowded everywhere. They even canceled schools so that people could see the eclipse and the traffic wouldn't, be so much because the population was supposed to double in size. Did any of that happen? No, it didn't. I would even go as far as to say it kind of looked almost like a regular day to me. But the point is that with the news, you always got to take it with a grain of salt anyway. Whatever they say, take it with a grain of salt. On Friday, there was an earthquake, a 4.8 earthquake that happened in New York City. It was an earthquake that occurred, but we got to ask ourselves, was it really an earthquake? Was that really an earthquake? Or was that just another man-made attempt to create history of some sort, whether it be negative or positive? It could have been a bomb. It could have been a gas explosion. I don't know. And the reason why I say I don't know is because when you look at earthquakes, according to the Wikipedia page, well, large earthquakes can have hundreds to thousands of initial aftershocks, like immediately, like hundreds to thousands of aftershocks immediately after an earthquake. But there was no aftershocks in this earthquake. It just jolted and it stopped. It was until the following day that they ended up saying that there was 32 aftershocks that happened. But yet, that's not what earthquakes tell us. They say that there's aftershocks immediately after earthquakes. That's a normal earthquake. So we can ask the question, was it really an earthquake? But CBS News told us, that this earthquake was about the same strength as the one that happened in 1884, which was a 5.0 earthquake. Yeah. And the New York Times said that the 1884 earthquake that happened in New York City was a 5.2. with an epicenter off of Coney Island. That's where the epicenter was off, Coney Island. And it was a 5.2 earthquake, according to the New York Times. The New York Times tells us that that earthquake was 4 times as strong as Friday's. 4 times more stronger and powerful than the one on Friday's. And its epicenter was dozens of miles closer to the city. Wow. That's amazing. But you know what is even more amazing? How do they even know this stuff when we didn't even have the technology to determine what the size of earthquakes were in the 1800s? We didn't have it. The first instrument, to the idea of a, instrument to detect earthquake magnitude scale was first developed by Charles Richter in the 1930s for measuring the size of earthquakes. That was the first time. 1934 exactly was the first time the Richter scale was used to measure earthquakes. So if that was the first time, 1934, to measure earthquakes, how in the world is the New York Times and CBS News telling us that it was a 5.0 or a 5.2 earthquake and it was 4 times the size as the earthquake that happened on Friday? How do they know? This is 1884. No one was alive in the 1800s today. Nobody. There's not one person alive today that was alive in the 1800s. So how in the world did they know 1884 there was a 5.2 earthquake when there wasn't even the technology to even measure earthquakes to begin with? That's what you call blind faith. Blind faith because nobody was here. We're just like, okay. That's what it is. That's what the news tells us, right? Everybody's okay with whatever anybody says, except for when it comes to God and Jesus Christ. Well, how can we really believe in Jesus? We don't have a splinter of the Noah's Ark. Yeah. But that's besides the point. What I want to talk about is a few days ago, I was told that this is how the way I was kind of told is, Sam, I guess that you're not really looking to go on dates, right? You're not looking to date. You're not looking to get married. You're not looking to have kids or a family. And I'm guessing the reason why he was telling me this is because of what I'm doing, these videos, or I talk about God, or I like to wear crosses and necklaces. And I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ and everything. And God's first in my life. And so I'm guessing that that's the reason why that question was posed to me. But the truth of the matter is, I'm definitely open for dating. I'm open for dating. I'm open for a family. I'm open for, getting married and having kids. I'm always open for this all the way into my dying day. As a matter of fact, right now I'm on Christian Mingle, on .com. I'm always open for dates. I'm even in worldly dating apps, and some of these worldly dating apps are wild and kinky and fetishy, right? So I'm on all this. Why? Because I'm single, and I'm free to do whatever it is that I want to do. I don't have a wife that, hey, what are you doing on those dating sites? All right. No, I could do whatever it is I want to do because I have Christ living in me. And so I could be on any type of site that I want. I could go on any dates that I want. I could do whatever it is that I want to do. And that's basically what it is, because we live in a day and age where there's two things that Christians just have a problem doing. Two things Christians do not want to do. One is following Jesus Christ by carrying their cross and getting nailed to it. They don't want to do that. They don't want to carry their cross and get crucified like Christ was. That's what Jesus did, not us. That's what he did for us. We don't have to do that. So they don't want to get crucified. They don't want to die, right? The second thing that Christians don't want to do is they don't want to be single. They don't want to stay single. They rather put Jesus Christ aside, right? They don't want to talk about Christ. They want to put away their Christian Bible. They want to put away their necklaces, take it off, and they want to go out and be the Latin lover, right? Or the white knight, or a black stallion to some, woman that they're courting or grooming or, coercing to get married to. That's what they rather do. They rather focus on a woman to show them that they love the manly things, which are, sexual in nature. So they put away the cross because that's not a Christian thing to do in order to find a woman. And some of these pastors, like we talked about earlier, the doctor on one of the previous videos, who says that once you are married, your wife now becomes your top priority. It's no longer God. Your wife is number one in your life. Now, I go back to what Jesus Christ says in Luke chapter 14, verse 26, and that if you love your wife or husband more than me, you're not worthy of being mine. I'm not here to sugarcoat Christianity. Okay, I'm not here to try to coax you into Christianity. I'm not trying here to sweet talk you into Christianity, into believing in God. But there are only two places people go in the end of this life. You're either going with God or without God. You're either going to heaven or you will be in hell for eternity. And you choose that way. And right off the top, if you say, well, I don't care what you say, you weren't there. You heard it now and you know it now. There's nothing but freedom in Jesus Christ. Freedom in Christ. That's why I can do whatever it is I want to do. Why? Because of the power of truth. And that's what you need to come to grips with. The power of truth. You need to know the truth. You need to know the truth. And the truth is Jesus Christ. That's what John chapter 14, verse 6 says. Jesus Christ says, I am the truth. I am the truth. Actually, the only reason why Jesus Christ came to this earth is to testify to the truth. That's it. He came to testify to the truth. In John chapter 18, verse 37, Jesus Christ is recorded saying, "For this purpose I was born. For this purpose I have come into the world, to bear witness to the truth. Everyone who is of the truth listens to my voice." Jesus Christ is truth. That's what Jesus is. Jesus Christ says, "If you hold to my teachings, you are really my disciples. You are truly my disciples if you remain faithful to my teachings. If you abide in my word, you are truly my disciples. Continue in my word." But you must continue in the teachings of Jesus Christ. Then you will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. You will know the truth, and the truth will set you free. Jesus Christ says, "Whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God." So those who want to do what is true comes to the light, so others can see that they are doing what God wants. Jesus Christ says, "He who does the truth comes to the light, that his deeds may be clearly seen, that they have been done in God." That's John chapter 3, verse 21. So when you know Christ, you will know the way to life. You will know the way to life. It's as simple as that. You will know the way to life. Why? Because Jesus Christ is the way. He is the truth, and he is life. He is freedom. That is John chapter 14, verse 6. Now, we're going to be talking about this a lot more in a couple of weeks. More in depth on Jesus Christ, on what's going to save your life. Quit trying to make things hard. Instead, make things easy. And we're going to make that here in the Mind-Altering Christ Transfiguration podcast. But for today, we're going to be talking about corruption. We're going to talk about forgery, identity theft, racketeering, money laundering, murder. That's what we'll talk about today. But this kind of actually topic reminded me of what just occurred a few days ago. You see, a few days ago, I went into the office and I had somebody who came in, a guest, not to get into specifics on what it is that I do, but a guest came in, a customer, whatever, and wanted to purchase a product that we had to offer. Now, in order to purchase a product that we have, we need to take a copy of their ID and credit card. Well, she didn't like that. She kind of actually flipped out and was like, "Whoa, whoa, whoa. Why do you need a copy of my ID for? Why do you need a copy of my credit card?" And she was like, upset about it. And I was like, "Listen, we can't do business with you unless I get a copy of your ID and credit card. That is what our policy requires. And yes, we abide by the law." And so she went through the 5 stages of grief, first upset, angry, and then trying to bargain her way out, whatever. And then finally she's accepted it, right? Those are the 5 stages of grief, which all Americans are under right now, right? We're in the last stage of grief. We just accept everything and anything. Anyway, she finally came to the acceptance to have her ID and credit card photocopied so that we could sell her the service. She was upset about it, but she went ahead and went through with it. So on the side note, as I was, doing this for her, I started to talk to her just as in a friendly way. And I told her she's probably I'd say about 50 years old, maybe 50 years old. She's kind of like my age, whatever. But she's like 50 years old. And so I started to talk to her that we're living in a different day and age today. And this is where we all need to come to realizations. We need to come to realization that we live in a different time today. Okay? Don't worry about somebody taking a copy of your ID and credit card. If this was 2014, that might have been an issue. 10 years ago, maybe. Like, hey, what are you doing taking my copy of my ID or credit card? Today, who cares? Why? Because anybody can get any type of information they want about you. Anyone. And this is where you need to come to grips with reality. You need to come to grips with this reality. And I was sharing this with her. I said, just as a friend, I was just like you. I used to be paranoid too about, well, why does somebody want my information? Why does somebody want this and that? And it reminded me of in 2017, Wells Fargo. Wells Fargo had a major data breach. They had a major data breach. And this was big news back in 2017, 2018, 5, 6, 7 years ago. And it was on the news all week, and they were talking about how millions and millions of customers had all their private social security card numbers, banking information, ID numbers, work information, phone numbers, email addresses, was all given up through a security breach through Wells Fargo back like 6, 7 years ago. Okay. And the truth of the matter, it happened again in 2021. Wells Fargo again had a major security breach. Okay. Major security breach where somebody hacked their system and millions of Americans had all their information stolen. That's just what it is. Okay. And so according to the internet, it says that more than 80%, more than 80% of U.S. companies indicate their systems have been successfully hacked in an attempt to steal, change, or make public important data. More than 80% of companies have been hacked successfully. All your information is already stolen. So what are you worried about if somebody wants to take a copy of your ID and credit card? I know it's, personal, whatever, but you're making a transition that, a transaction that is going to give you a service. I mean, who cares? Why make a big deal of this? This was 10 years ago. I mean, somebody could just run your license plate and get all your information, run your phone number and get all your information, just run your name online and get all your information. An independent study from the University of North Georgia, actually said 95% of U.S. companies have had their companies successfully hacked. 95% of companies. I'm like, then they say that 54% of companies say they have experienced one or more attacks in the last 12 months. In the last 12 months, more than 54% of companies says in the last year, they've had 1 or 2 times that people have tried to hack their systems. I'm like, why worry about an ID and a credit card? Last week, the latest one, AT&T had 73 million users lose all their information, their data. Their data was breached, AT&T. And now you don't even hear about this stuff anymore. Why? Because of the fact it just happens so frequently. Remember the notice that I have? It's actually over there. I don't want to get up and get it. That said that all my information, actually, you know what? I will. Give me 1 second. All right. So this happened. This was sent to me in the mail, right? About 2 or 3 weeks ago. And this tells me, let's just read what it says. It says, Dear, my name, we are writing to inform you of a data security incident in which your sensitive personal information may have been accessed by an unauthorized third party. This notice provides information concerning the incident and the service we are offering at no charge to help you protect yourself. On or about January 4th, 2024, which is this year, all right, there was an identified and potential incident affecting its systems. We promptly took a series of steps to contain the incident, remedied the issue, contact law enforcement, and launched an investigation of the incident. Through our investigation of the incident, we determined that between January 3rd and January 5th, 2024, an unauthorized third party gained access to certain of our systems, including certain sensitive personal information stored in those systems. All right. And it says the incident may have impacted your name, your address, your email address, your financial account numbers, social security number, phone number, and date of birth. This was to me. That was just mailed to me. So all my information's out there. They could get your open credit cards, whatever. So that's my point is that why even worry about that? The latest one was AT&T. If you have AT&T, you might be one of the 73 million Americans who have all their personal information stolen from them last week. According to Astra Security, ASTRA Security, they say that 4,000 phones every day are hacked. 4,000 phones every day are hacked. And that's 1.5 million every year. Phones get hacked. Norton Security actually lowers the number, saying that 2,200 phones get hacked every day. That's roughly about 800,000 every year get jailbroke. So somebody's watching all your information on your phone. All right, that's why they can see anything you post, whatever it is that you have. That's the society, that's the world that we live in today. This is what we need to come to grips with. All your information is all out there, all of it. Excuse me. There are 2.2 million people with a computer science degree in America. There's over 5 million people with a computer engineering degree. These are the ones that successfully got their degree in computer programming and stuff like that. There's roughly about 12 million people with degrees that are related to computers. You don't think these people know how to hack your computer, how to hack your phone, how to hack anything that they want? Yeah, it's illegal, but still, like you see here, there's, if you want to go to the low end, Norton Security, 800,000 people have their phones hacked. This is your phone broken into every year. Every year. All your data information is gone. So you need to understand, this is reality. This is the cost of living in technology. All your information is out there, period. Okay? And before we continue on, I wanted to address the situation about a question that unbelievers have. This is a question that unbelievers really want to talk about. The question is, this is the number one question an unbeliever in God has to ask. How do you reconcile a loving God with all the suffering in the world? That's it. How do you restore friendly relations with a loving God with all the suffering in the world? That's basically what the number one question is. And I just want to sit back and just ask this question, can you imagine if there was no God? Who cares about God? There's no God. How many, you should be thanking God that there are people out there who believe in God, that believe in eternal consequence, that believe that no bad deed will go unpunished. That actually believe that in the end of life, there are two places, heaven and hell. Can you imagine if there was no belief in Christianity? I mean, you should be thanking God that there are people who believe in God. Because if you don't believe in God, then what is there? Just to make money? Maybe be a part of a team that's going to hack your phone? To hack your, computer, a company? 95% of companies have been successfully hacked, according to an independent study from the University of North Georgia. If you want to go with the other internet, it just says 80%, but still. Imagine if there was no God. It'd be a free-for-all. It'd be like, what's the point of life? Just to get as much money as possible. That's it. There's nothing else more, is to get money. So that question is really like, how can you, reconcile a loving God with all the suffering in the world? Well, okay, let's just put God out of the way. We have all the suffering in the world. Now what? Now what? The Bible's no longer there. There's no longer a message of love your neighbor, love your enemy, or, forgive and have mercy. There's no more message of that. So now what? Now it's just a free-for-all? Just, hey, who's your crew? Who's my crew? Who's your team? Who's their team? Now it just becomes gangland, gang infested. Corporations against corporations. Like, imagine if there was no God. So what is the point of that question? How do you reconcile? Just don't reconcile. Reject Christ. Do whatever it is you want to do. Because when people do evil in this world, you really need to get rid of God. That's the only way for you to move forward in doing evil, which is serving money. And it's kind of interesting because, that's what we're going to talk about today. Business Insider. I know it's always Business Insider, right? But Business Insider, they have an article. Now that we're talking about money, Business Insider, the California restaurant owner, says he'll absolutely have to put up wages to compete with fast food chains now paying $20 an hour. He will absolutely have to compete with fast food chains now paying $20 an hour. So he's going to be doing this, right? His name is Sal Venetini, who owns the Italian-style Garden Club restaurant. Yeah. Leave it to the mob, right? The Italians. The Sal Venetini, who owns the Italian-style Garden Club restaurant. Not that all Italians are that way. I'm just saying, But he says he can't afford workers' benefits besides what California has to offer. The California requires that your employer pays you sick leave. That's the law. And he says, I can't afford workers' benefits. But Sal goes on to say, our margins are so small to begin with. Our margins are so small. That's really tough, especially for independent restaurants to make a buck. It's really tough. Since I took over the restaurant in 2018, this is him speaking, the previous owner died. So he took over the restaurant in 2018. I have not paid myself because there is no profit there. And with the rise of inflation with food costs and labor costs, it's getting really, really bad. He even says really, really twice. And so he's got 24 staff members who he's all going to be starting to pay a minimum of $20 an hour. But let's listen real quick to what he says. Our margins are so small to begin with. That's really tough, especially for independent restaurants to make a buck. Since I took over the restaurant in 2018, the previous owner died, I have not paid myself because there is no profit there. So he's saying he hasn't paid himself. There's no profit there. And with the rise of inflation with food costs and labor costs, it's getting really, really bad. I got a question for Sal. What are you doing in the restaurant business? If there's no profit in the restaurant business and all it does is create headaches, why are you even in the restaurant business? What's the point? You haven't paid yourself in 6 years. You're like, I'm suffering. That's terrible. But when you look at what we know about California, right? We need to go back in time. We can look at what California law says. Is that California is a corporate-owned, right, CALI place, corporate-owned life insurance policies, which means that a life insurance policy that is purchased by a California employer that designates the employer as the beneficiary of the policy and insures the life of a California resident who is a current or former employee of the employer. So you could be a former employee as well. They could get a life insurance policy. I mean, why? Because they have your ID and social security number, right? So we all know about corporate-owned life insurance, and that is a fact, okay? Don't come up with, oh, well, you're just making conspiracy theories. No, that is life. Now, there's an old saying that says, a way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Right? A way to a man's heart is through his stomach. Well, why is that? Because you poison the food, right? The food goes into the stomach, it affects the heart, and today, 1.5 million, almost 2 million Americans, every year die of a heart attack and stroke. They die of a heart attack and stroke. Almost 2 million Americans die of a heart attack and stroke. And so how does that happen? Well, for the most part, it's what you eat. That's what you eat. So isn't it kind of interesting that this whole minimum wage debacle is now for fast food employees? Now, I'm going to tell you, and I can only say this because of the fact I work in restaurant, is that restaurant is really a entry-level position. It's not a job that you're going to stay for life. I mean, it's only like, where there's no growth. There's only one manager, where there's no growth in restaurants. All you do is just make food. I mean, how hard is this? I worked restaurant. I can say this. So already when you go into a restaurant industry, and if you want to start off in a restaurant, okay, that's fine. But as the years go on and you continue in a restaurant, well, it's really a brainless job. Okay, let's just say that restaurant, fast food work, whatever it is. But my point is, with this raise of minimum wage, it causes a lot of companies now are starting to close their business. It separates the weeds and the tares. It separates the goats and the sheep. The greatest of all time goats, restaurants, it separates the goats and the sheep. Well, why? Because everyone has an insurance policy in California. The question isn't, does everyone, why would somebody get an insurance policy on you? The question is, why wouldn't someone get an insurance policy on you, right? And the reason why is because of the fact that that is a government, corporate-owned government life insurance. The government gives companies tax deductions, tax breaks for getting life insurance policies on you. That's what the government does, okay? The government pays your employer to get life insurance policies on you. They help your employer get those life insurance policies on you, okay? Now, when we cover that cause, and this is fact, don't tell me, oh, well, Sam, you're just pulling stretches. No, this is reality. Your employer gets tax breaks and tax deductions for getting life insurance policies on you, okay? So think of all the companies that are out there. Now, if $20 an hour is too much for a company, for a restaurant, and they have to close because it's too much for the owner to pay out $20 an hour, which is now law, you know what that does? That eliminates the good restaurants who probably don't live off of life insurance policies from their employees' death. They probably don't live off of their death of their employees. Why? Because of the fact, yeah, they may have a life insurance policy, but they're not going to go out and have connections with crime in order to, help an employee die. So therefore, it eliminates good restaurants because they can't afford it. Well, if you can't afford it, then maybe one or two of your employees need to die, right? Because then if your employee dies, what does that create? What is $20 an hour? $20 an hour is over $40,000 a year. And what is $40,000 a year in a life insurance? You can get 10 to 12 times the amount. That's nearly $500,000. One of your employees die, guess what happens? That $500,000 comes to you. You didn't have to sell $500,000 in product in order for it to pay your salary cap, right? My point is this. Well, this divides companies now. Because if you can't afford it and you got to close your doors, it's because you're doing things right. You can't afford $20 an hour. Why? Because who can? The only ones that are going to stay open now in California are the crooked businesses, crooked corporations, people who like to, I don't know, put a little special seasoning on your food. They're all restaurants. What do you do at a restaurant? You eat. You eat at a restaurant, right? So this is what California has done. They're dividing the sheep from the goats. These restaurants that are the greatest of all time, get rid of them, right? I mean, no, that they're staying. You're getting rid of the sheep. This is the separation between the weeds and the wheat. Only the strong survive. Now we're keeping God out of the way, and now we're serving money. Because if you really were a part of that, corruption that the world is, like Christian business owners, they're not going to be able to do this type of thing. Why? Because they believe in God. They have a conscience. There is an afterlife. There is consequence. There is heaven and there is hell. But in order to live that type of life, well, you got to just put that all aside. And now you serve money. Now because now you're just putting life policies on people. And after you get 1, 2, 3, 100 life insurance policies that your company is facing, now you're like, man, that's a lot of money from the death of these employees. I'm not telling you a fantasy, a fairy tale. I'm telling you a law. The California Insurance Penal Code 10110.4, Section G. A former employee, the disclosure requirements shall be deemed satisfied if the employer mails the required information to a former employee's last known address. That's all they need to do. Just mail you a form, and if you get it, you get it. If you don't, you don't. It don't matter. You're still going to be walking around with the price tag over your head. And that's the law. But before we go into all this, different type of conspiracies with thought of, now that we know the way the corporate-owned life insurance works in the law, and the restaurants are now divided, the good restaurants, the ones that follow probably Christian restaurants that follow, trying to make an honest buck, trying to make an honest living, they're going to need to close. Why? Because they're not relying on the death of their employees to get money. But the ones that are crooked, that are willing to put seasoning on your food, special seasoning to make your heart stop, right? Every heart beats a dollar bill. Well, they're going to stay open. Why? Because of the fact they're already a part of something. They're already a part of evil or wicked. Now, before we go down that road, we need to switch to Hollywood. We're going to be Hollywood now. Okay, we're gonna make up stories. I know time is running already, so I have 2 stories here that I want to share. And I say we're going to be Hollywood because it's just going to be a story. We're going to mix reality with fiction. We don't know if this is true. It's just going to be a story. Now, if you say that what I'm telling you is a conspiracy or it's not factual, I'm not telling you a conspiracy or factual. I'm just telling you a story. Because if what I'm telling you is a conspiracy, then everything Hollywood does is a conspiracy. Why don't we call their movies conspiracy? Why don't we call their stories conspiracy? So what we're going to do is we're just going to make up a story. Just make up a story. And that's what we're going to do so that we can understand the way the world is. We're going to make up a story. So don't come to me and start saying, well, where's your facts? Where's your proof? Where's your evidence? That's a conspiracy. That's fake news. Why don't you tell that to Hollywood? All these stories that they do are all make-believe. Why don't you go over there and tell them, hey, you're not saying the truth. You're not saying the facts. They do is they mix reality with fiction. That's what they do. So what we're going to do the same thing. We're going to make up a story. Just like the way they do. And how the way we're going to make up this story is, we're going to say, oh, I don't know. Let's say there's a guy, his name is Paul. All right, so Paul, he graduates high school, finishes high school, comes from a Christian home, parents are Christian, And so his parents, are devoted to following righteous living. They, abstain from worldly things as much as they can. And they try to raise their child up in the right way. And so, the son now decides, hey, this restaurants now are paying $20 an hour. These fast food restaurants are now paying $20 an hour. So Paul decides to go and apply for a restaurant. Now, the first thing is this restaurant, like according to Sal, he's got 24 staff, 24 people who are on his staff. So we'll use Sal as an example. You apply at a restaurant with 24 people there. Now, do you even know these 24 people that are working in this restaurant? You probably don't, right? Your name is Paul. You go and apply. Sal likes you. You're 20 years old. So he hires you. And so now you're a part of the staff. And now you're working in the back, you're making $20 an hour. And you start getting more hours. So now you're working 40 hours a week. And you're like, hey, this is pretty good. I'm making $40,000 a year. Sal likes you. Everyone likes you. And you're Paul. You're over there working. Your parents are like, oh, God is good. But in the end, you didn't really know any of these restaurant employees that came to you, that you work for. But that's the restaurant that you went and you applied and you got hired. But all of these restaurant employees, 24 of them, they could all be a team. They could all be in cahoots with Sal as a criminal, right? I'm just saying. Actually, we're Hollywood now. This is story time. All Hollywood. This is all story. Don't come to me and say, hey, you're don't got facts. You're saying fake news. You're assuming your assumptions. A story could be said any way you want it to be said. So now we're going to say that Sal's team of 24, about 6 of them are corrupt. They're corrupt with Sal. Okay, and you work in a restaurant, and now you're working in the front of the restaurant. And you're a host. You're 20 years old. You're making $20 an hour. 3 years go by. You're 23. They've given you, $20 an hour. You're making $40,000 a year. Now the whole thing is that because of the fact Sal is corrupt in the story. Okay, we're just saying the story. This is a Hollywood story. It's make-believe. So don't take it serious. Don't take it to the bank. I'm just telling you a make-believe story. This is fiction. There is no Paul. And Sal, I'm just using an example. It could be any Sal. We're not even using that one. We're going to just call it a different restaurant. We'll say Tony's restaurant. Okay? Doesn't matter. T-O-I-N-I. Whatever. But then Paul, he's working in the front, he's making his money, he's doing this and he's doing that. And being that he's 20 years old, right? Well, now he's 23. And so he's got a new car, he's making $40,000 a year, he's buying these cars. He's young, he still likes to go out, he likes to go to a club, he likes to do this. But little did he know that as he's going out with his friends, because he's got money, he's been working in the restaurant, Tony's restaurant, for the last 3 years, that he never knew that he actually had a life insurance policy on him. Why? Because Sal was corrupt. And Sal had his team that worked for him, a part of a 24 people staff. Now I'm saying this because we're just playing the story. Don't go over there and start looking at Sal. I'm just telling you a story. We're Hollywood. We're Hollywood. This is story time. We're make-believe. With a little bit of truth. So now, Paul, he likes to go out with his friends. He's 23 years old now. Likes to go, to the nightclubs, or likes to go dancing or do whatever young people like to do. And so he's out in a club one time, one night. And little does he know that when he goes out with a couple of people from the restaurant who invited him to go out, a couple of other people from the restaurant, the team of 24, took him out to the restaurant. Took him out to a nightclub. And they all work for the restaurant. So they're having a good time. They're partying. But the party is over. And now somebody's trying to pick a fight with Sal. With Paul, with the 23-year-old. They're in the club, and someone's in the club and bumps into Paul. And Paul's like, whoa, 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 hey, calm down. Hey, why'd you bump into me? Just some random person. And he's there with the other restaurant co-workers, who's a part of Sal's team, but he bumps into him. And so now there's friction in the club, right? And so Paul is like, man, I don't know what that guy's problem is, but that guy now is staring at Paul. Well, Paul ends up leaving the club, and as they're heading over to their car, this guy who bumped into him shoots him dead. Just shoots him dead because he's mad, right? Because they had over a bump in the club. And the co-workers are freaking out. They're like, oh my goodness, we work with him. He's such a good guy. Oh, Paul, I hope he lives. But in reality, Paul dies. And he was 23 years old. But the one thing that nobody will ever hear about is Sal now gets $500,000 because he's dead on a freak accident as he went out and partied and died by gang violence or whatever they want to call it. Story. That's all it is. Story time. Let's make up another story. Same restaurant. They hire a dishwasher to come in. The guy, he's been looking for work left and right and left. Nobody wants to do a dishwashing position. Nobody cares about the dishwashing position. They're always in the back burner. But yet some guy named Jason, who's like already 40 years old, washed up, now looking to be a dishwasher in a restaurant. And this is the job that he's applying for. A dishwasher in a restaurant. Jason, 40 years old, goes and applies for Tony's restaurant. And Sal's there to hire him. Hey, there he is. What's your name, Jason? Okay, well, we do start off at $20 an hour. And I got to tell you, Jason, that you're able to eat a free meal every shift. But you have to tell the cook on what it is to make you. So what you do is you go to the little kiosk machine, you type in your order, it goes to the back kitchen, they make it for you, they give it to you for free. But you got to do it that way. You can't just go back and start making your own food. You're the dishwasher. So Jason's like, well, that sounds pretty good. I'm making $20 an hour. I'm 40 years old. I, get a free meal at lunch. And so now Jason is now the dishwasher. And Jason becomes the dishwasher of Tony's restaurant. So now Jason's happy. He's getting 40 hours a week, making over $40,000 a year, probably the most money he's ever made. And then on top of it, he gets to eat for free every meal. And he gets paid vacation, paid sick days. He gets paid if he gets sick. That's the California law. Now, we already know what California law is through insurance. That's where the employer becomes the beneficiary of your death. So you have Jason there working. And Jason was actually kind of a good employee. He worked pretty well. But he worked there for about 4 to 5 years at Tony's restaurant. But what the crew at Tony's restaurant decided to do is they decided to start poisoning Jason's meal. You see, Jason, he isn't married. Jason doesn't have any kids. He had a hard life. Now he's at work. He's happy with the $20 an hour now at the restaurant. In this restaurant, it's Jason's turn to now have a heart attack, right? Now, the thing is, Jason's working. He starts to become sick. He starts to get sick. He uses his 6 days, comes back to work because he has to. But he doesn't realize when he's taking food home, it's getting poisoned, right? So one day he goes home, he's eating a burger that he got from Tony's restaurant or a bowl of spaghetti that is laced, and it stops his heart. Almost 2 million Americans die every year from heart attacks and strokes. Now, a heart attack and stroke is the same thing. Almost 2 million die every year from heart attacks and strokes. So now all of a sudden, year 4, year 5, the dishwasher in the back, Jason, he's no longer there. Now they have a new dishwasher. Does any of the employees care? Nobody cares. But what happened to Jason? Well, it was found out that he died of a heart attack. Did anybody mention it? No, nobody cared. But yet, what was his policy? $500,000. Tony made out with $500,000 because Jason died. His heart stopped. Every heartbeat is worth money. It's just a story. It's just make-believe. It's just Hollywood with a little bit of truth, right? Because we already know about corporate-owned life insurance policies. This is life. This is what we're dealing with. But you know, I'm going to use the church for an example here. I don't think the church would mind if I use them as an example. We're just using an example here, and this is just going to be another story. This is an example of life. Now you have a church. It's a mega church, so they're getting a lot of people coming in, and they want to devote a department of their church to helping out people that are coming out of prisons, or homeless people, or people who are in bad shape, and they want to house them. And the only requirement is come to church. They house them, they give them work, they give them jobs, and of course they teach them the Word of God, right? So you got a mega church who has a department, and they even go out of the way to even purchase a men's home with 20, 25 beds, and they bring these men that are looking for a better life, they're struggling, they come out of prisons, come in and out of jails. And so you end up housing them in this 20-man dormitory. And then you have some people at the church who give them jobs. They're all working, and they get to live in the residence. Now they're living in the residence, and they get a job. So now all these 20 men that they choose, and they understand they don't have any family, they don't have any friends, they don't have any wife or children, but this is a men's home that they're trying to rehabilitate back into society. But right away, what does a corporate law state? Corporate-owned life insurance policies. So sure, they get them all work from people at the church. Now the finance department is there getting life insurance policies on all of them, right? And these people are working now, some of them making 20 bucks an hour, $25 an hour. Of course, we know what that is. $500,000, $750,000 life insurance policies on people who came out of prisons, came out of the streets, came out of bad situations and homelessness. And now they're working in a church, in a men's shelter. Well, where do they put their address? They collect the mail at the men's shelter. So what does an employer have to do? It will be deemed satisfied if the employer mails the required information to the former employee's last known address. This is the law. It will be deemed satisfied. It's satisfied if they just send you a letter in the mail. Well, you're all housed in the same shelter. You got your employers mailing the shelter. How easy is it for the person in charge of the mail to just, whoop, you ain't going to get that. Whoop, you ain't going to get that. And now you go on living your life, not even knowing that you have a $300,000, $400,000, $500,000, $700,000 life insurance policy on you. And now the judgment begins. Matter of fact, I'm going to look up the the judgment now begins. I was going to look it up. I should have had it here. Where, are you a backslidden Christian? Because we did hear that one pastor a few videos back, didn't we? What did that pastor say? If you're a backslidden Christian, kick him out of the church. Why? So the devil can kill him. That's why. So that at least his soul will be saved for God. Right? Kick him out of the church. Well, now you're kicked out of the church with a $500,000 life insurance policy on you. Right? Because you don't even know that. But now you go back to the world. Now you find yourself in the same predicament or situation or life. And the networking of this church. Remember, all this is just Hollywood stories here. We're playing Hollywood right now, okay? So don't go and start saying, well, this isn't fact, this isn't, and it's not fact. We're just playing Hollywood. If you want to question my story, then why don't you start questioning Hollywood stories, right? It's just story time with a little bit of truth. We're playing story time. This is story time. Now, you have all these guys with the pastor that says, if you're backslidden, kick him out of the church so the devil could kill him. Oh, how convenient. How convenient. And while he's dead, little does anyone know that the employer, who is a member of the church, got $500,000 life insurance policy on him. And that employer who got a $500,000 life insurance policy on him, well, of course, they have to give their tithe to the church of $50,000, right? So here's 50 grand. Here's your rack of cash to the church because of the fact that's their tithe. And so this is the life that we live in. You see how the way people serve money instead of God? They need to serve God and not money. We're going to get into a lot of this now. And believe it or not, everything that I'm telling you right now about the corruption, about the wickedness of this world, right? Two things. One, you ain't never going to hear this in the church. They will never tell you about none of this, ever. And two, is that you are free to do whatever it is that you want to do and be right with God. You want to forge signatures. You want to get life insurance policies on other people. You want to network with the world and criminality to cause people's death. You want to collect money. You want to do whatever it is that you want to do. You're free to do whatever it is you want to do. Why? Because you can do whatever it is that you want to do through Christ. Christ will let you make all the money you want. Make it all. Put life insurance policies on anybody you want. You can. Dog eat dog. You could do whatever it is you want to do. There's only one requirement. Only one requirement is that you speak truth. Let me end with this. We'll continue next week. Whoever lives by the truth comes into the light, so that it may be seen plainly that what they have done has been done in the sight of God. Remember, those who do what is true comes to the light so others can see that they are doing what God wants. He who does the truth comes to the light so that his deeds, his actions may be clearly seen that they have been done in God. Are you of the truth, or are you living a lie? The judgment is easy and the judgment is clear. But we're going to get to more of that next week. Remember, Just stories, just Hollywood, right? That's all it is. Story time. Yeah. We'll get into some real truth next week.